welcome to another episode of Exotic Car Hack, where today we get to talk about, or I get to tell you about why another YouTuber yet bought another Ford GT for no fucking reason. So in today's episode, we're going to talk about, you guessed it, my new Ford GT. Well, new to me, right? And so, you know, a lot of people have been obviously excited about the movie Ford versus Ferrari, and so they're saying values are going up. So we're going to analyze a little bit about if that is true, and what are some of the things you basically need to know if you're about to buy a Ford GT. Now, later, we're also, of course, going to go for a drive and get a good glimpse of, you know, how the car is as a car, meaning is it a cool car to own or not. The first thing I will tell you is that Ford GTs have been getting a lot of attention because of the movie, so there is some truth to that, and marketers are doing a great job all over YouTube buying them. That is unfortunately not the reason why I bought my car. I bought my car because it was a unique opportunity as a hacker, not as someone who just wants attention on a YouTube video, to actually drive a Ford GT not only for free, but actually attempt to make money doing it after a couple of years. So, you know, for a long time I've been looking at the Ford GT market, and I've been very hesitant to get into it because primarily the basic concept is they're old as shit, it's a Ford, and it's ugly as shit. So there's three basic things why I wouldn't buy a Ford GT. So why did I think they were ugly? First off, I think race cars are just hideous. The wheels are small. It's just got this really like bizarre raw feel to it that's like all a gutted interior, etc. And the Ford GT is no different. Without mentioning that the doors are fucking atrocious to get in and out of, so you knock your head all over the place. It's completely worthless, right? So that part just makes the Ford GT kind of really show its era as a Ford, right? The other thing is, well, just that, it's a fucking Ford. So while it's cool that it was $150,000 new, it's not really cool that they're trending at like $250 to $300K, which is almost double sticker used. And that's not even for like a premium 200-mile collector grade car. So again, kind of not really flattered about paying 300 grand for a Ford, let alone the other part that we've seen even the rarest of Fords, like the Cobra Rs, kind of go below their MSRP even 15, 20 years later. So it's kind of a bad comparison maybe because the GT is a stronger car, but we also know that Ford is pulling out more GTs now out of their ass than ever before. So with the new Ford GT, with the paddles, it's not really a comparable car, but it's still a Ford GT. And we've seen values go up, and now they have a second, and they're gonna have a third production run on these cars, which means all of those people that bought their cars for $500,000 and now are off of their 2-year agreement and can sell them for 1.2, better get the fuck out of them because they're gonna drop to like the 800, 700K range once that production number keeps, you know, getting higher and higher. Meaning the more someone can get something, the less likely they're going to overpay for it. And no, a new Ford GT is not worth $1.2 million. It's just basically what is considered supply and demand, right? So we understand that. Now, what are some of the things we need to understand about the Ford GT? They're old as shit. So one of the big things, the misconceptions, is that you're going to be able to get one that's flawless, perfect, doesn't have any issues, won't need any type of work, and it will still be a bargain. And the answer to that is most likely, if I could, and you're probably not going to unless you get lucky. Meaning that it's not a game of strategy at that point, it's a game of finding unicorns that don't exist, right? So one of the most, I guess, or one of the best ways you can get into a Ford GT today, knowing that the hype has already started, knowing that the values have already doubled from their MSRP values and so on and so forth, is to actually understand why the old Ford GT is actually a better long-term investment than the new Ford GT. So remember that we're in a historical era of change, right? Meaning 6-speed transmissions are now done, and obviously the new Ford GT is not a 6-speed either, it's an e-gear car. So there's going to be a very different dynamic to what makes the old Ford GT collectible versus the new Ford GT collectible. And yes, the 6-speed has something to do with that. There aren't other, you know, mid-engine 6-speed cars out there that Ford has or is planning to release anytime. I mean, they've done away even with the 6-speed in the GT350 and 350R, which means that, you know, they are going away from this old dated transmission. And listen, I love 6-speed cars. Obviously, I buy them. I love driving them. I grew up with them. But at the end of the day, it is a dying dinosaur, meaning that a lot of young people will never experience a 6-speed. They'll never even know what it is or why it works. And a lot of us who have even experienced single clutch transmission e-gear cars will go, those have pretty much gone away and they've been complete garbage, right? They've been the first like example of what an e-gear transmission is like. And I think people need to realize that this is a changing time. And while there is collectability in the 6-speed transmission because it was the last era of the perfected transmission, and it has a lot to do with racing, heritage, and everything else, the single clutch transmission does not. So like buying an E-gear car because it's a first layer E-gear actually makes it a problem, not really an actual like solution, right, or an investment. So that's kind of what you have to understand about the original Ford GT. There's nothing else like it, and it's always going to have a place historically into where the cars fit in general, because this was Ford's first attempt at a supercar, and they did pretty okay. The experience is pretty incredible, even though the fit and finish is very similar to a Ford Focus. So, you know, you want to kind of understand these basic, you know, these very basic concepts. The cars are not without flaws. This is something you need to understand too if you're buying a Ford GT. You need to understand that one, most likely the gauges, all the gauges will go to shit eventually. If you have no miles, you're lucky. If you make a mistake like hit the start stop button twice by accident, like when the car's already on, you'll probably shortcut all the gauges. Now, the bad part with buying a 15-year-old fucking car is that you're not going to be able to get parts for it. One of the biggest issues with this fucking car is that anything body-wise, like the bumper, the headlights, etc., you have to try to find use somewhere because it's almost non-existent new. It's out there, but like it's almost non-existent. Like for example, I've been trying to order 2 new headlights, and I got one right one, not a left one, meaning like they don't have a driver one, they have a passenger one, and the other one has no date of ever being made. So you don't even know if you prepay for it, they'll make it or they won't make it, or they're talking out of their ass. So this is where it gets very difficult, right? It gets difficult because it's just very, very hard to confidently drive a car that you know if you have an issue with, you'll never be able to fix. So that's kind of a problem, right? The other part of it is also to understand that while on the outside, meaning all the aesthetics, like the bumpers, all of that stuff, the wheels, etc., that stuff is hard to get. But what's not hard to get and fix is the motor stuff. Partially because a lot of the Ford shit is just Legoed out from one car to another. Pretty much 90% of the cars like clutch and engine, etc., have been used somewhere else, so there's some kind of new part somewhere that works with this car. And as a result of that, it's actually cheap because it is a Ford. That is the only benefit of driving a Ford versus a McLaren or a Ferrari. Like if you look at the clutch or if you look at the transmission on a Aventador, you'll be paying 30, 40 grand for a transmission, you know? Versus if you look at the entire overhaul of this car to take out the motor, redo everything in it, and put it back together, you're looking at under 15 grand. So, you know, when you think about that, and you think about like the baseline of what it costs to really drive an Aventador versus Ford GT, you start realizing the Ford GT is an extremely awesome bargain, except for the fact that you now can't get half the fucking parts on the car, so it's kind of fucked too, right? So, is the Ford GT a good investment? Well, it depends what you pay, right? If you're able to get a Ford GT in the low 2s, you're pretty golden. I don't think it's going anywhere, and I don't think we're going to see 150K cars come out anytime soon again. And there's a couple of reasons for that. The first one is that obviously the new Ford GTs are trending at $500,000 to begin with MSRP, and you know, supply and demand, of course, is leveling them to $1 million. Two, I think the big part to understand too about, you know, why we won't see a 150K car anymore is that you have to understand that money plays a significant role in the game of cars. So money in the world has increased significantly too, and there's a lot more people playing in space. That's why Lamborghini makes 10 times more cars in a month than it used to in a 3-year period like 20 years ago. So the point is that if you think about that in itself, then you start realizing that the cost of money is up. So if this car was made today and it was brand new, it'd probably be selling around 300 grand. Meaning that, you know, the new one's 500, not because it's that much better, but rather because in today's money, 500 is no different than in 2005 and 6 when you were paying 200K for a car. The cost of money is going up, and so we're not going to see even the best of cars, the older cars, trend in their back dollar then. Because if we factor in inflation and everything else, yesterday's 150 is today's 250. So while we think there's such a supply and demand surplus for the car, there is, but it isn't as much as you think. A lot of that has to do with the money factor of what is happening in the cars in general because of the amount of additional money in the market buying and selling cars. So we have to understand that, right? And that plays a role in that. So I think low 2s safe for a very long time. The other thing you have to keep in mind of buying a Ford GT is that you're going to spend money bringing it back to life. There are some very normal and basic concepts, just like I said earlier, like gauges are shot to shit, seals are going to go back on transaxles, they're going to go back on the motor. It's going to need probably full tune-up, meaning like take all the motor out, redo all the seals, redo all the plugs, just make sure all that stuff, because these cars are getting just old. And while clutches are pretty strong clutches, you still have this whole concept that while, you know, it's there, you still may have to replace one, but not anytime like soon, because most of these cars have very low miles. The one behind me that I bought was a 12,000 mile car. And the only reason I bought it, like I said earlier, because I think it looks like complete shit, is because this car was actually modified. If you actually follow me on Exotic Car Hacks, you know that all of my cars are modified. And so as someone who buys a modified car, this was modified the right way. It has a Whipple 4-liter on it. It has headers, exhaust, intakes. It has a tune. It has the HREs. It has suspension mods. And as a result of all that and some of the aesthetic upgrades it has, it just looked right to fit in the fleet. And so it made sense to buy one since I paid in the low twos for it. Now, one of the key concepts too is to make sure you buy a car that is going to match your behavior with it. One of the big mistakes people make with these cars is that they end up buying cars. They go, I'm gonna buy a 600-mile car because it's collector grade, but I'm gonna drive that shit every day and put like 5,000 miles on it. Well, guess what? By the time you sell your car, it ain't worth collector grade shit because you got 5,000 miles on it. On the other hand, if you want to drive your car, buy a car with 7,000, 8,000 miles, drive it to 12 or 13. It doesn't make a difference, because a driven car, bought as a driven car, sold as a driven car, is better than a collector car, bought as a collector car, sold as a driven car. You're going to lose more money. And remember, Exotic Car Hacks is about teaching you how to save money. So if you've taken my course, you already know this. If you haven't, click the link in the bio and make sure you go to the free training to understand exactly how to hack your way in and out of exotic cars and what the hell we're talking about. So basically, the Ford GT, is it a good car? It's a really interesting car, and it's an experience like none other. We're going to go for a drive so I can give you my opinion on the drive of how it really fits, if it's really better than a Ferrari or not, and really what there is to understand about it. Because as much as I'm very direct about cars, I diss them in terms of their values or what manufacturers do, and I'm very raw in my approach to how I talk about them, I'm also very honest in the fact that I give credit where credit is due, something that a lot of people don't do. I'm not paid by a manufacturer to do a review. I don't really care if they like what I have to say about their cars. Even if the dealer that gave me this car was the dealer of the year for that make, it wouldn't make a difference for me. I talk about cars the way they are, based on the fact that I've owned over 130 cars now, and all of these cars have had a personality of their own. Some are better than others. Some are faster than others, some are better, they're too fast, not fast enough. All of these things come to play, which is why it's very, very important for me to be as clear as I can when I say that while I may be very, very direct about cars, that experience comes from a lot of context that a lot of people doing these reviews have not had. Plus, I actually buy the cars that you see on my videos. I actually put my own money into them. So I'm not just reviewing a car because I borrow one from a dealership and I have something to say about it. Any car you see on my channel is a car that I've either privately owned and sold, or actually still currently own and enjoy driving. And so you've seen a lot of new cars for my 2020 fleet, with more coming. This Ford GT is the latest edition. It's pretty incredible. It was purchased at a really aggressive price from my friends at Chicago Motor Cars, and as a result of it, it needed a little bit of work, which we kind of worked out, and the work is being done this week. And so since its inception, I've already spent about $3,000 in it. Another $15,000 total will go into it before it's perfect, and the car will be as good as a new car, but in a driven mode, because it already has 12,000 miles. So the point of it was to buy a car I could actually drive, because I missed driving a 6-speed since I sold my Ferrari 550 for a record profit, and you can actually go and check that video out as well. I just made $45,000 flipping this 550. All right, so now that we've talked a little bit about the values and we understand everything about the story, let's actually take a look at the car so I can point out to you all its flaws and of course all the things that make it unique. Because as I said, this is a very modified Ford GT, and it's going to make it very, very cool for you to actually see how crazy or awesome some of these features really are, because it is different after all. And then I'm gonna go ahead and take you for a drive afterwards. So on the surface, you'll notice that this is a 4-option car. Now, there were 4 options with this car. Basically, it was the wheels, the caliper color, the sound system, and then the stripes. That's what makes every Ford GT a 1, 2, 3, or 4-option car. So whenever you hear these things, then that kind of tells you where the value is. The 4-option cars are the most desirable. And then comes the color idea. This red is actually a very popular color, so it's not as expensive as, let's say, tungsten, like the silver gray one that was one of the best ones. There's also white on blue and so on and so forth. There's other colors, but for the majority, red is not that popular of a color. It was actually a very produced color. And what I mean by it was popular, but it wasn't from a value standpoint popular as an investment. The other thing to consider here, this car has a full matte black stripe package, which is actually very different than the original white. Now, before someone says, well, they didn't make this. Yes, this is vinyl over the factory white stripes because it just looks significantly better than the actual white stripes, from my opinion anyways. Some of the things you'll notice basically is that I've paint corrected this entire car, redid the clear film on the entire car just so that it's protected and so on and so forth. But I want to show you how kind of fucked this whole model is because people may not have actually shown you like how awesome or fucked these cars are. So follow me over. You'll notice here on basically from a modification standpoint, I'm going to go through that first. You'll notice the HREs, spectacular 3-piece wheels with Lamborghini tires on it. Just one of the best looking set of wheels for this car. I think this was very tastefully done by the guys at Wheels Boutique and it came out fantastic. Outside of that here, we're going to pop the motor. You're going to see there's a Whipple, etc. From a modification standpoint, the only thing really done aesthetically to this car is the black stripe package, the wheels, and it's been lowered. And you can really see a difference in the design as a result of that because I think it looks fantastic as a car with these wheels. I thought it looked like complete shit without them. I mean, look at how aggressive this is. And for that reason, I really like this setup because it gives the car such a like fuck you factor look with the slight kind of like tire sticking on the side. I think it just looks really, really aggressive. So do I love this? I really like the design of the car. I think it comes out really good with the wheels, not so much otherwise. Some of the basic things you want to look out for as these cars are getting older, you'll see that the trim here starts to show its age over time. So you want to make sure that was maintained properly so you don't have trim issues because those are the things that may be expensive and difficult to get over time. We're going to open it and take a look inside the car. I want to show you that basically what I'm talking about, the issue with the car is this thing right here. As you can see, this is the car, this is the door open halfway, and you can obviously see how difficult it is that every time, even if you open it a quarter of the way like most people, because your garage will only have so much space, you're gonna knock your head on this and just like, you're gonna have concussions after a couple of times. It's really fucking annoying. And then look at what happens. In order for you to really get out of the car, this is how high the door has to be open. It's almost as bad as the Wraith we were reviewing that I used to own that I hated because look at how much room you need on each side. You almost need 2 full parking spots to get in and out. So it's very difficult to put that next to another car and comfortably get in and out. I actually, you see with that wall over there, I have to crawl out of the car over there to get in because there's usually a car here in my man cave. I just wanted to kind of show you this. The other thing basically you'll see is that the seats have these like billet things in them, which is cool. And then you have all your gauges up there we're going to take a close look at. But basically, outside of your carbon fiber seat and the fact that there's rubber on the floors, there isn't much of a feature here outside of a fantastic CD player. For those of you that are old school players like me and like the CD player from back in the day, this is nostalgic. For everyone else that's like fucking like anything under 30, you're fucking looking at me like, what the fuck is a CD? What do you do with that? Well, back in the day, we had porn on CDs. You guys may not know that. We had to actually like pop a CD, select a part there. We didn't have like live streaming and all that shit. So we literally carried CD cases of porn and CD of music, you know? Something to know for all you youngins out there that don't know. People keep ear fucking me. I don't know what they want. But anyways, so that's kind of like the feature. Now I want to show you some of the other things that are kind of fucked up. So you see the door and how fucked this is. So that's kind of like the first fuck thing. The design here on the mirror, spectacular, very pretty. Now if you want to open your gas cap, if you own a Kia, you hit a button and it opens. But in a 4GT, you have to fucking put the key in here, then do that, and once you do that, it pops it open. Then there's this cap here that's very fucking annoying. So again, like you have to use this shitty Ford Focus key to open this gas cap. Something that really wouldn't have cost, I think, that much money to make this shit work. It does not make sense to me, you know? Like it just doesn't really like in any way just make me feel good, right? It's weird. So let's say we want to open the trunk now. This is something else that's really weird, right? Let's say we want to open the trunk and we want to actually see if we can actually fit anything here. So there's another latch here on this side that does the same thing, and we're going to put the key in this one. And by doing that, we're going to unlock it. Now when we unlock it, we actually have to grab it so it doesn't relock. And here we have this entire hood. And you see, because these latches are getting old, because they're just old, some of them don't stay if you don't go all the way up, so you got to be careful. And this is pretty much the entire storage you have here on the car. That's it. Like, one of the things I want you to understand is that the only storage you really have is like right here, like this center section here is the only storage because these pretty much eat the entire hood. So you only have like this much storage, which doesn't even fit a bag. It fits like a quick detailer thing and like 2 towels, and like that's it. So like you have 0 glove box in the car, you have 0 storage here, nothing. Like, and that's okay as long as you understand the intent of the car. Meaning if you drive this as your only exotic, it's gonna piss you off. If you're me and you have 10 exotics and this is just one of them, it's gonna be cool because you're never gonna need to put anything here because you're never gonna drive the car otherwise. Now there are some other cool factors that I wanna show you outside of this, which is probably gonna collapse on its own, so I'm gonna put it down before it actually makes any damage. We're gonna make sure it's sealed and locked. We're gonna go ahead and open this rear hatch here, which is, again, we're opening this door fully, so bear with me here. And then I'm gonna show you how to do that. I'm gonna need to get help from my video guy in order to do that. There's a little lever here in the center of the car that unlocks this, so we can actually pull it up. And then once we do that, you see we have to try to pull this up, which is, again, a complete pain in the ass. But once we do that, then we gotta figure out a way to actually unlock it and pull it up. And I'm gonna do that on the other side. And you can see how annoying this is. That's part of the reason I feel like this just sucks, is that it's just really, really difficult. Okay, so this is down. I'm gonna try to pull this up without breaking the door on this wall. Okay, and you see once you pull it up a little bit, you get a little bit of a freeway here to play, and then there's a bracket here that, you see the bracket right there? No, right up front, look. Yeah, push that in, there you go. So my cameraman's helping me here so you can see that. Now this is fucking cool, like I give you that, super fucking cool. The thing you gotta be careful, I'm gonna close this door here so I don't knock myself dead, is that you don't put your head here because these fucking lashes are getting old and I don't trust that this isn't gonna collapse on my head and kill me. So there's a couple of things we need to understand basically about what's happening here. This isn't a stock car. This entire supercharger system is now a Whipple 4-liter, which means that it's making almost 1,000 horsepower. These additional intakes there are put there, but they're ultimately useless. I don't even know why they did that. And then outside of that, there's a header system, a tune, and of course, a new exhaust system, which is like almost a straight pipe system. In addition to that, there's also a fire extinguisher system here, which you'll see in red, which is actually out of date, which needs to be updated, of course, which would just pretty much fix it should something happen, you know, in case of a fire. But basically, if you look here, you'll notice this is very, very cool. Half the car is open. It looks fantastic. And look at the tire. It's so wide. It's a Lamborghini tire from an Aventador. It's just great. Everything looks great. It's just a sick, like, kind of setup. But you have to understand that, again, outside of the cool factor, the practical factor is completely shit. So I wanted to kind of show you this so you understand kind of like the car in general. Basically, other things you can look out for is some of the things that get damaged the most. I'm gonna, actually, I'll leave this up for a second and hopefully it doesn't collapse. You wanna come on this side, you'll look some of the things that really you need to look out for. Some cars have bumpers like these, some do not. There's a bumper delete package, which is like about $5,000, where you can pretty much wipe these bars here off and you have a flat one type of car without this piece. And then you don't have to worry about any of this shit in its alignment. You also have to look out for the diffusers on the front and back. They're very easily hit because the car's like this much off the floor on the front and back. So people forget, they back into like parking rails, etc. It cracks stuff. So outside of that though, the car is pretty solid as a car. It's just that you have these little quirks and these cool and uncool features. Like the doors are uncool. The actual back is super cool. Offers a lot of like, you know, difference, etc. And one of the things I will tell you is you have to kind of know these cars to pay attention to the gaps, for example, here. Just as cars are getting old, you'll see there's like a clear shield here from the factory to prevent the thing from hitting, and you got to double check that all these tabs and everything are in the right place so that they can make it easy, meaning very easy for someone to just like literally adjust these and make sure everything's aligned, etc. But basically, I just wanted you guys to see this firsthand, understand it. Let's go inside the car, take a look at that, because I think that's going to help you understand the dynamic of how the car functions. Not that you haven't watched 50 fucking other YouTubers talk about this shit, so I don't even know why. Actually, you know what? Fuck it. I'm not even going to show you the inside. You don't need to know. Just fucking Google someone else that owns a 4GT, which is everyone that's on YouTube right now, and they'll show you how to use the buttons inside and shit. But basically, you have 5 fucking buttons. They're completely useless. You turn on the lights. You turn on the fog lights. You turn on the hazards, and then you have your AC controls right in the middle, and then your fucking radio at the bottom. It's pretty self-explanatory. You don't need to see it. From a value standpoint, one thing you should know is the middle of the steering wheel has a Ford GT logo that's like stainless, and that gets fucked really easily. So if you look at all of them really closely in photos, you'll notice they're completely deteriorated in a lot of the cars out there. They're just from age. It's not that they've been abused. One thing you need to know is on eBay for $35, because we like being extorted for buying a 300K car. We like paying for a fucking sticker like this for like 35 bucks when it should cost less than 30 cents. But we go and buy that fucking sticker someone pre-cut that fits right in the middle, and it makes it look brand new temporarily. It's a good temporary solution. Apparently there's one guy in Kazakhstan or some shit who can remake those things for you, and that's the only guy that does it. And then the sills here get fucked very easily, but you can always buy new sills. I bought a new set on eBay for like $80, thanks to this fucking thing being a Ford. But otherwise, that's pretty much it. So catch me on the next video where we're gonna go for a drive and really compare this versus the Ferrari and see if it's indeed a car that was worthy of beating Ferrari. I was actually pretty disappointed by the movie. You'll hear my thoughts on that in the next video, because the movie really made me not want a Ford. I just bought this because the opportunity was right, because as I say, Exotic Car Hacks, love money more than you love cars. Make sure you subscribe, click the like button. You don't love me, it's okay. You don't have to love everybody, but at the end of the day, I still have one, and most likely if you're watching this, you will have one at some point. But if you don't hate, love, click subscribe, click like. I'll catch you in the next video.